So welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I've decided I'm going to be doing a video on my car. So if you can remember, we had that crash back in July and I've basically just been working on it whenever I've got time really, but I've now managed to get back in the unit and well basically just get it done and ticked off, ready to get back out in December now. So the rails are now straight, everything's been cut out, there's quite a bit of welding that needs doing on the front, and the front section is missing that holds the bumper and everything on, and then we can get the headlights and that back in. So I'm going to be looking at doing that first. I can get the bumper and the lights all mounted up, and then we've got a new Garrett turbo to throw on it and a 6-speed gearbox. So we're going to be busy now for the next few weeks, but I'm going to be starting off with all the welding and that on the front end, and then we can be doing the turbo gearbox. It's booked in for tuning in 2 weeks, so a bit of a push for that. And then once we get it back from tuning, it'll just be a case of, like, I've got to plate these off and fix a bash bar onto the front and get this bumper looking back to one piece again and throwing that on the car. And then, to be honest, I think that is pretty much it. I think that'll be enough to get it ready out for the December drift day, and then after that we can look at painting the bonnet and the headlights, and I've got some fiberglass skins for the wings, and then getting the bumper all painted back up, and then should be back all up and running, ready for next year. So that's the plans. So I'm going to be starting off with this front end, so I need to get this welded on to like the original mounting points. So this basically just holds my bumper in place and the original bonnet latch, but I have got some upgraded bonnet latches to put on. So once that's all welded up, we can then mount the headlights and get all the panel gaps and everything aligned up how they should be, and then we can then move on to the turbo, and then I think with the front bash bar will be done then after the tuning, so I think we'll be pushed for time if we do it beforehand. So I've got the front end all on by with some grips at the minute, and this side seems to be alright. Obviously if it was bolted in, but the panel gaps and everything looks nice, and when the bonnet's closed there's a nice panel gap, but then on this side the bonnet catching there, and as you can see the wing is like under the bumper there, and it's not sitting happy under there. I've put some tape over the wing because there's a kink in it there that's pushing it in. That's just pulling it out at the minute to keep it out. So I think this needs to come back to me a bit, and then once that's in like a suitable position, I can get that spot welded up, and then we'll basically have to make the bonnet and the bumper and everything line up with that then. But if we can get it somewhat right, then it'll make life a lot easier and it'll look 10 times better then. So I've been lining up the wings and the bonnet because they were still out slightly, and I've been tweaking the headlights to fit around the bumper, just to figure out where I need to weld this. I've made some little plates to go on there for both sides, so I can just get them spot welded in, and then once they're in, I can then mark out where the holes need to be for the top section and get that welded on, and then once that's on, everything else then should be able to just put back together, and tweak the panel gaps a bit, and hopefully we should be done then with the front end. We can move on to the turbo then. So I've just finished welding these plates on now, so that is now ready for the front end to go on. So obviously mark out where that's going to be going, and then we can get that spot welded up. And well, I need to drill the 2 holes for the top section, and then once that's all welded in, good to go then. So I'm just getting ready to weld this top section on now. I've drilled out the holes and that so I can get it spot welded in, and then them plates are all on properly now. So I'm going to get this welded up, and hopefully everything lines up how it should do them. So that top section's all welded in now, so it just needs grinding flat so you can't really see them. But the bonnet seems to line, the bumper seems to line up pretty nice. There's still, like I say, we'll have to adjust all the body lines and everything, especially this wing, because that's still damaged. Need to get a bit of heat in that on that one. But other than that, it seems to line up, and the gap from the radiator is pretty consistent, so I think that's as straight and as best we're going to get that really. So we can start building it back up and everything now. So as we can see, front end is completely done now. So I've grinded back all the welds and everything, so that's all solid now. I can pull the car from it. So I'm now going to move on to getting the headlights in and roughly mounting up the bumper, and then I've also got some bonnet latches that we need to fix onto the front end and then start cutting holes out in the bonnet. And I also want to do some like little vents in here just for better cooling for the turbo. And once all that's done, we can then move on then to install the new turbo. So it'll just be a case of unbolting it all and swapping over the oil lines, and then I think we'll leave the downpipe off for now until we're finished with the gearbox, and then we can bolt the exhaust valve back up in one piece then. But it's coming along better now. So as you can see, I've got the headlights all back in now. Took me some time to get it all aligned up properly, but it now all works and doesn't seem to catch on anything. But if I just close the bonnet, it doesn't catch on the lights anymore now. And so I've just thrown the bumper on, and again the headlights seem to fit fairly nice. The bonnet dropped just because it's got no latch on it at the minute, but other than the bonnet, it doesn't look too bad. And again, it's not really bolted on down there, mainly just this side. I'd say this headlight needs to come up slightly here, but it has got a little bit of a crease in it from the crash. And again here just needs like pulling over slightly to close in that gap, but it's just minor adjustments really now. So I think I'm gonna start by doing, I've got some of the latches for the bonnet, so I can get them marked out and drilled, and I can put them on, and that'll lift the bonnet up slightly so there's not a gap like that. It'll bring it flush with everything else, and at least it'll lock then. But other than little minor tweaks now, definitely getting there. So I've just started removing the turbo now, so I'm going to get that fully disconnected, and then I can throw the new Garrett one in. And then once all the oil lines and everything are in, I'm going to move on to the 6-speed gearbox, and then we can finish off mounting the downpipe and everything like that, and hopefully get it up and running now it should, ready for tuning them. So turbo's all out now, I've got the oil lines off and the downpipe and everything. So I'm going to throw the new manifold in and connect the oil lines up, and then turbo's pretty much done, then we can move on to the gearbox. So I've got the manifold all bolted in properly now where it should be. The turbo's just sitting there as it is for now, because the oil return line is slightly too short. I don't know if you can see that, but it needs extending by a couple of inches, so I'm going to have to drain the engine oil and extend that up so we can reach, and then it's just the oil feed line that we need to put up on the top and get the downpipe bolted in, but it needs lifting up slightly, but we need to remove the exhaust to do the gearbox, so that can be done after the gearbox. But new turbo's looking very nice, so we're definitely getting there with it. So as you can see, we've got it all up in the air now. Turbo's temporarily in, and I've removed the exhaust now. So if we just get underneath and have a quick look. So I just need to remove the downpipe and the PPF bar, and then we can get the prop shaft off, and then I'll have to go inside the car to take off the hydraulic handbrake and the gear stick and everything, and then that'll allow us to drop the back end of the gearbox out. As you can see, we'll have to take all the plate off and everything there, and then once all that's off, we can start unbolting the gearbox then. Hopefully drop it down onto the floor, and then we can throw the new 6-speed in it then. So I'm now just going to remove the prop shaft and the PPF bar. That'll give us enough room then to pull the gearbox out. So once I've done that, I can begin with the top section and then remove it, but it's a bit hard to film under here, so it's not going to be the best, but I'll come back and show you when it's all done. So it has been a bit hard to film the process of pulling the gearbox out, but we did manage to do it. So the 5-speed's out now, so I need to just change over the starter motor, and then we can look at getting the 6-speed all bolted up and everything then, and then start rebuilding the prop and PPF bar and everything like that. Once that's done, finish off with little tweaks on the turbo, and then it's off for tuning them. So I've just finished installing the new starter motor for the 6-speed, so I'm now going to look at getting the 6-speed in place and bolted up, and then start rebuilding the prop shaft and everything like that then. So I've managed to get the gearbox all in now, so ready now to start building it all back up. Went in a lot easier than removing it. So I can get it rebuilt back up, put the prop shaft in and downpipe and exhaust and everything like that, and then we can look at getting it back on the floor then. So I've got everything bolted up now, prop shaft and PPF bar and everything's in now. It's literally just the exhaust and finish mounting off the downpipe on the turbo, and then finish off the turbo with the oil lines and everything, and then we can get it back on the floor and it's ready off for tuning then. So I've got the car all back on the floor now. I did have a slight issue with getting the exhaust on. I had to get it extended by a couple of inches, but that's now allowed me to get the downpipe all bolted up and the rest of the exhaust basically. So the turbo is now all bolted up and everything where it needs to be, and we've got the oil lines all on, the feed and return. I also had to get a new connector for that, but that's all up and running now. So the only problem with the turbo is the boost pipe. So it's hitting one of the power steering hoses, so I'm gonna have to try and like move that out of the way and then bend it round 90 degree so it's nowhere near the power steering then and doesn't hit the boost pipe. So once I've made that basically and got some new pipe for it, the boost pipe then should all bolt up nice and easy, and then I think the only thing then is continue building up the shifter and handbrake and everything like that. Once that's in, we should be ready then to get it off for tuning. I've been crazy busy trying to get it ready in time, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we get there on time with it. So I'm now just going to finish rebuilding everything inside the car. So I've got the shifter in and that already. So I just need to put the rubber seal on and then bolt the handbrake and everything back up, and then we should be good to go then inside. So I've just finished building up the inside, so that's all ready to go now. So once the boost pipe and everything's all connected up, should be ready to go then for tuning on Friday. So I'm going to throw some oil back in it now, so hopefully once all the oil's in and I can make something with that power steering, boost pipe goes on all alright, and then we can try start it up then, and just a case of getting it on the trailer then ready for tuning. So literally just about there now. Well, it's literally the night before tuning, so I've managed to get the boost pipe and move that power steering line over, so everything in the engine bay is ready to go. But my only problem that I'm having now is over at the exhaust. So my back box with two resonators on, a bit hard to see, but the exhaust doesn't really line up now that the downpipe is kind of moved, because the turbo sits slightly different to where the old turbo used to sit. So if you look, the downpipe's a little bit higher up and more to the right, so exhaust isn't really lining up. So what I'm going to have to do is try and make a temporary exhaust, basically using my old back box. So my plan is cut the tip off and the straight pipe here and literally weld that onto that bit. So that is basically one section then, and basically delete these resonators, so it will just be one big straight pipe, which it will be loud, but it's only for tuning. Once we get tuning out of the way, I can then look at getting a new exhaust system made up for it, and then other than that, it's just a case of getting the bash bars on and then getting out in December. So I've now finished making the exhaust. It's not perfect, but it should do for tuning. So it's just a case of getting it on the trailer and everything now ready for tuning. So car's already on the trailer, so off we go to tuning. So we've got the car all back from tuning now. It came back as 237 horsepower, so pretty good for standard engine really. Boost kicks in around 2000 RPM, which is about spot on for drifting. So we've just got to see how it goes now on the December drift day. But we've still got a few tiny little bits to tweak. We've still got that power steering leak, so I definitely need to get that sorted. And then the front bash bar, I need to make one of them. And then we need to make a permanent exhaust, because that little bit that I did at the back was just temporary for tuning, and it's far too loud for regulations at track, so we need to get one resonator made, and then I think I'm going to put a downpipe on it. So once all that's made, should be ready then for the December track day. But I think that's it for this video. So if you enjoyed, stay tuned and make sure you've subscribed. Thanks for watching.